have the fancier sleeve on. I have the other one.
Well, I kind of think yours is fancy, honestly. I like
Look at us with our fancy microphones.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I'm usually getting made fun of because I'm the only guy with a mic.
So
Yeah.
I actually I get the opposite. I get all these comments of like, oh, we're on a radio show and all this. And it gives me an opportunity to be like, oh, I've got a podcast. Tech Talk, y'all. You should listen.
I call that being made fun of, by the way.
I think
so people's compliments.
I've been made fun of so much
of
that I just kind of roll with it now at this point and take it as a compliment.
You mean like when people give you a hard time about having an Android phone like that?
That's a compliment for sure. 100%.
Guys, I have you here for other reasons.
I thought this is what we got together for.
This is how every conversation goes with us. We have to really like rein it in.
That's why he tried to send us a video of what he wanted to talk about, and clearly it didn't work.
Yeah.
So you wanted to talk about the new business, why we're entrepreneurs, and what else? Was there a third thing?
Yeah, well, we're rolling, man. This is live.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, it's recording. It's recording. We don't do a live show here. We, meaning me.
You should though.
Yeah, let's start here, gentlemen. Introduce yourselves, who you are, and I want to hear how you each explain what you do. Sanjay, you start.
I'm Sanjay Parekh. What do I do? I'm a tech entrepreneur. Been a tech entrepreneur for 21 years now, I think. And what do I do? I dabble in code, very poorly. And I create chaos, and just blabber on about stuff. That's basically, 24 hours a day. That's what I do.
Not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that order, and not necessarily in that priority either. Like some of those things are a lot more than others. So code is like a lot smaller of a percentage than the other things.
That's right. Adam, who are you and what do you do?
Let's see. Adam Walker. I'm gonna go with tech entrepreneur. That sounds pretty good. So I grew and sold an agency. I'm currently leading marketing at a nonprofit. I've also got a couple of startups going. One with this guy on the video. And I host, I think 3 podcasts now, 3 or 4 podcasts, something like that. So, just a few things. And, of course, 5 kids with trying to adopt the 6th. So, just a few things going on.
Just a couple. And of course, I can't not talk about the shirt you're wearing, because I also think you should put into your who you are. You're like one of the world's leading nonprofit digital marketers.
Yeah, we built a few websites. Yeah.
So that's the 48 and 48 shirt. You've overseen the development of over 800 nonprofit websites in the last 6 years. So that's something.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. I got more work to do for 48 and 48 this week.
Perfect. So before we get into the new business you guys have created, which is why you're here, was I the one who introduced you to?
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so what percentage of equity do I have in this new company?
We're still dialoguing about that.
Is negative valid?
Wait, you're going to penalize Jeff for introducing us? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I thought you wanted some equity back from him for the thing that he doesn't have equity in because you have to work with me, right?
All right.
I'm just looking out for you, Adam.
Here's the first question I want to ask each of you. And we'll start with you, Sanjay, since you said it's been about 21 years. What was your first entrepreneurial step? What did you do first?
Well, I mean, if you want to go really way back, myself, like so many other entrepreneurs, the first entrepreneurial step was selling candy bars to other kids during school. Did you do that, Jeff? I feel like you've talked about
I didn't,
this.
but David Cummings did. That's part of his story.
So a lot of entrepreneurs did that. So I did the arbitrage thing of going to the convenience store, buying candy bars, and then selling them at a markup to other kids in school, starting, I think, in elementary school, and then using that stash of money to buy comic books, well, a lot of which I still have today.
Yeah. All right.
So that was the first step. But if you want to know the real first step, professionally, the not candy bar arbitrage, that was starting up Digital Envoy. So one evening in 1999, I came up with the idea to do location-based targeting based on an IP address. So knowing with an IP address where somebody is geographically. And so that kind of blew up over time, raised $12 million. The company exited in 2007 and still exists here in Atlanta.
And usually people take a few swings at the ball before they have a home run the way you did. I didn't realize that was your first.
That was the first. Yeah. It's good to be lucky. It's better to be lucky than good.
Sure.
And I was definitely lucky. And so, I mean, you can, if I actually go through the story, there's so many points where it's like, okay, that was luck. That was not skill. Like the first story that was written about us after I went full time, I happened to go to, I was a little concerned about doing this. I went to a red herring Venture Market South event here in Atlanta, which neither of those things exist, Venture Market South or red herring. But it was like $1,000 to go to this event. And I was like, man, that's a lot of money to go to an event. And our CFO and also co-founder was like, just go. I ended up sitting next to a guy that was a reporter for red herring who ended up writing the first story about what we were doing, which ended up getting read by the founders of advertising.com, who became our first customer, that wrote us a check big enough to cover our monthly rent check for our office. So it's like, I could not have planned any of that. That was all luck. It was a matter of being in the right place at the right time, but also putting yourself in a place that luck can happen to you.
Yeah. And being able to take advantage of the opportunity when it came. So that the luck is nuanced, and you're a humble leader, as is Adam. But it's where opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you just described. Okay. Adam, when did you first become an entrepreneur?
That's the first thing that I started was actually a nonprofit in high school. So it was probably the first company that I started. And I actually have started several nonprofits, including the one, of course, Jeff, that you and I started at 48 and 48. So it was kind of the first venture into starting something, building a team, creating, a buzz. We actually put on events as a part of that nonprofit. And then the first thing that I created that was of value was Sideways Aid. And so that was the agency that I grew and ran for 10 years and had a great co-founder for that. We had a really good 10-year run and then, we're acquired, and now we're off kind of doing all kinds of interesting things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you two, why did I introduce you to? I can't even remember.
I'm not sure if I remember why either.
It makes no sense to me.
I think it was like, Adam, you should know this guy. And so I just kept going out. So every, Sanjay was on the rotation. He was like, every however many months, need to have coffee with this guy. So I'm just hitting him up for coffee on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And it was in one of those fortuitous coffee meetings that we ended up talking about starting a podcast. And he was talking about how he needed to start a podcast. And I think the way the story goes is I offered to help him or something. And then we just started a podcast and it just went crazy from there. So
yeah, well, I think you came down to Prototype Prime, which is the incubator that I helped start,
right.
A nonprofit hardware software incubator. And we were touring around. And if I remember correctly, we'd sat down and we were just chatting in front of the big Greg Mike mural painting that's there in the lounge. And we had just toured through the space, and the podcast room was one of them. And I just started setting that up. And I said oh yeah, they're telling me now that I should start a podcast because we've got this podcast room and nobody's using it just yet. And you just jumped up and said, well, I'll do that with you. And I, if I recall correctly, that was your exact phrasing. And I was like, well, okay, sure, let's do this. Now I don't have to, search blindly on my own for it. And so that's what started Tech Talk Y'all right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
been great. A couple of weeks of figuring out a name. I think it took us a while to figure out a name and then a logo design. And we did, I think, 3 episodes that have never seen the light of day. Like we recorded them and then we were still trying to figure out how to edit and all that, but we went through the rigmarole of doing it. And then once we got through those, then we actually started publishing.
Yeah, that's been great.
It's very successful. Lots of people love it. I think it's the top podcast in the South with y'all in the title. What do you think?
Well, I think it's the number one in tech comedy.
Yeah, that's
the number one tech comedy podcast in the world.
Comedy duo.
Only one, but it's the number one in the only one. Yeah,
it's good that we're not the number 2 and we're the only ones doing it, right? So we're number 1.
Fair. Okay, so now you're doing something again. So there must be something that each of you, find tolerable about the other that you thought, let's Let's try something else.
Or it's the opposite. Everybody else finds us intolerable, right, and we're the only two left.
Or it's the better the devil you know than the one you don't. Like that's fine too, right? Just depends on the philosophy you want to subscribe to.
All of those work very well. So, okay, so you find yourselves only being able to tolerate each other, and you say, "Who says I want to have it? Who says I've got an idea? This new thing."
Well, so I mean, it was a conversation that really happened over, I don't know, like a year probably, or
maybe
it was
even longer than that. It was like 2 years ago that we started talking about this.
Yeah. So we kind of started dialoguing about like, what would it look like to essentially have a project management tool where it's all based on email, rather than having another service for somebody to log into, subscribe to, check whatever else. Like, how would that work? That sort of thing. And we just sort of bantered around, and then it would die off, and then we'd pick it back up and banter around again, and it'd die off. And then I think recently, Sanjay, we started talking, we were on Zoom, I think, talking about it. And then you sort of pivoted into like, well, what if it was, not so much project management, but more like social, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because just recently I talked to somebody and kind of told them the idea, and they were like, oh, we do these stand-ups and you can use this for that. And they're like, yeah, that's where the idea started. So I think all of these things are somewhat interrelated, but it's really, at the end of it, it's about helping connect people to one another through a group, but in such a way that it's private, right? So the big problem I think that both of us see is that when you're doing these things on Facebook or Twitter or any of these social platforms, first of all, your updates are there forever. And they're also findable and searchable by other people. And even if they're private, they could get hacked or, accidentally published. For us, that's not an issue because, first of all, we never publish it publicly, and it's all only used in email. So everybody that's in the group that gets it via email. So it's not published anywhere. And
the other thing that I really love about it is, I mean, again, back to this idea that it's not another place to log in. It's not another place to check, because in any group that you're a part of, unless it's a work group, but any friend group, any family group, any social group you're part of, there's always going to be somebody that's not on Facebook. There's somebody that's not on Instagram. There's somebody that's not on Twitter or WhatsApp or whatever. In this way, it's all email. Everybody's on email. Everybody's on email every day, all the time.
Email and a browser. That's all you need.
Right. And it's called TogetherLetters. Each of you give me one use case.
Well, so I'm wondering if maybe we should describe it here first and then give you a use case, because I think we've sort of hinted around what it is, but maybe we should like say what it is. So essentially it's the idea that you've got a group of people that are on an email list together. Okay. And each week, everybody on that list gets prompted to give an update. That update is 300 characters or less. So it's quick, short status update. And everybody that participates, it gets combined into one collaborative newsletter. So it's TogetherLetters, right? Is the idea. So one use case for that, I'll start with, is a work group. So weekly, what did you do this week? What are the 5 things you did this for your work group? So I have it going out to my work group. Everybody fills out what they did this week. It combines it into a nice newsletter, and we all get it. And we have a nice record of it, which is great.
Yeah, I think the other use case is all 3 of us are actually alumni of Leadership Atlanta. I actually use it for my Leadership Atlanta group. I've been inviting people slowly and kind of growing that list. And people seem to really enjoy doing it. So much to the fact that one of the rules of TogetherLetters is if you don't supply an update, you don't get the newsletter that week. So it encourages people to say something. So we've actually had people, and this has actually made us think, provide basically non-updates to make sure that they get the newsletter. Yeah. So it for us, at least, it makes sure that people are still interested and engaged, but it also showed us that they like the newsletter so much that they're willing to give a non-update because they don't even have anything going on they want to talk about, just to make sure that they see everybody else's update. So we've got some ideas around that, how to make that better so that they don't have to provide a non-update and still get the newsletter. But it's been interesting.
So is this it? Is this the idea and it's playing out and you're going to tweak it or is there like, and then 3 phases later take over the world?
Well, no, I think world domination is actually phase 4 technically, but no, Sanjay looks real surprised. No, I mean, I think
it was number 2.
This is the this is the core idea. I'm sure it will take some new directions. I'm sure there'll be some pivots along the way, but ultimately, the idea is that, we want to provide these smaller newsletters for free. We'd like to be able to monetize in some capacity down the road. And maybe that's with bigger newsletters or more features or whatever, maybe more than one question or whatever else. But this is the core idea. And so far it's playing out to be a pretty great one.
Yeah. I think even with this idea, this is one of those things that, I don't think we're going to need to branch into other modes of communication or anything else like that. There is so much to be done just through this that phase 3, I don't know if we're ever even going to get there. Right. I mean, it's so far off into the future, right? Like we've got so much to do just now. Everybody that signs up and starts using this always invariably gives us a couple of ideas of new features that we need to add.
Yeah, there's a long list of feature ideas and even long-term plans that we just, we'll get to at some point.
Well, I'm curious because, founding something with someone, as you both have done and both understand, it's like second only to marriage in terms of a relationship that, has to go right. So I'll let you guys sort of love on each other a little bit. I'll start with Adam. What was it about Sanjay that makes you want to do something like this with him? Because it takes a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of collaboration. And my guess is 9 out of 10 people in your life, you wouldn't start a company with, because you just know what's all involved in that. Yeah. Certainly for me, it's like 99 out of 100 people. It's that criteria is really specific. So what would you say about Sanjay that makes you want to do this with him?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the convergence of a lot of things. And to your point, you're right. I think the large majority of people you'd never want to start a business with. No offense to any friends that are listening, by the way. I love all of you dearly. It's tricky, right? So I think there's a couple of factors that play in. One is we get along really well, right? There's just a compatibility as we talk, as we brainstorm, as we come up with ideas. There's a give and take. There's kind of that sort of natural flow that comes with just a good partnership, right? And there's of course the drive to succeed. I think Sanjay might be one of the more prolific people that I know in terms of just reading and knowledge and just understanding just a vast amount of things, and still having this weird amount of television and movie knowledge that I don't understand how he has any time for. Like it's crazy, right? So there's that. And I think, those are probably the two biggest things is like the drive, the talent, and just the compatibility to make it all work together. No, I think those are the things that really, really stand out to me.
Sanjay.
Yeah. I would say it's definitely those things. I think what we've experienced now over 3+ years of doing Tech Talk Y'all is how our minds kind of complement each other, right? And kind of how our views of things are not always the same in areas that are important, right? So like even in building this, there was one point where Adam was uncomfortable, as was I, about deploying this product in the fact that it looks super ugly right now. It is not pretty. It is unattractive. Like you go to any website, even from like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and you're going to be like, that's better looking than this TogetherLetters thing. And Adam wanted to wait and get a nice polish to it. And my argument to that was, look, if it's useful, people are going to use it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And it's better test to give them something ugly that they then continue to use, because then that they'll use it more when it's pretty. And so we bantered about it, and he was like, okay, yeah, let's give it a try. And I think that has borne out versus us spending the time on that. So, having somebody that is willing to listen and not be stuck in their own views is useful and important. I think that's one of the critical things as co-founders. I've experienced that before, in the fact that, with other co-founders, we've argued about stuff, but really it was more about arguing to make sure we were doing the right thing and not be like, I'm going to just dig my heels in and I am right and you are wrong. It's more of I'm going to argue this with you just so we don't do something dumb. And I'm a big fan of that. I don't mind arguing if it's just to make sure we don't do something mortally dangerous to the organization, and then pick the right thing and then move on from there.
And you must have some sort of, even if it's an unspoken agreement around, because one of the more tense situations between co-founders is maybe someone's working harder than the other. And both of you have multiple things going on other than TogetherLetters. So is it just a mutual understanding? Is one of you heading up now and someone else later? How's this going to work?
Yeah, I'll jump in there first. So right now, Sanjay is doing just the vast majority of everything, primarily because he can code and I am pathetic. I mean, just abysmal at coding. I have no business writing any kind of code. So
I like how you assume I have business writing code, but okay.
Well, you can at least define a variable. Okay. I'm not even going to define a variable in Ruby. I can't even do that. All right. So let's just be real. So, so right now the work is really falling heavily on him. It's going to start ramping up in the marketing direction very soon. And I'm starting to actually even this week to put in significantly more time in sort of trying to prepare that. And my intention is to even out our workload and begin to even balance out the work already put in as time goes forward. And I'm able to do more on the side and the admin side. So that's the goal. I don't even know if it's been directly verbalized that was the goal, but I think it's sort of been understood that was the goal.
Yeah.
But the way I see it. How about you, Sanjay?
Yeah, exact same. I mean, these things ebb and flow for sure. Development is always going to have a lot of work to do. And I hopefully escape that role at some point when, we've actually got revenue coming through that we can hire some folks to actually do work on this so that the code is actually good quality. Like for example is, was it last week? Last week, I introduced a bug into the code that prevented most people from getting their requests for their responses. So that's how early. And then I never knew this term, but apparently I was cowboy coding because I was actually changing code on the server on a live system just to figure out why it was broken so I could get it fixed. But that's the kind of thing that I do. And obviously that is not recommended and most people should not do that. And so I think eventually, we're going to get to a point, hopefully, if this goes how we see it going, that both of us will come to a point where we're not actually doing so much work and it's more directing and kind of thinking and figuring out and having other people do, the real work.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys, did you create a corporation or are you just building a website at this point?
We're gonna get this a little further along, I think, before we create a corporation. I think that we're close. We're close, right?
Yeah, I think in the coming weeks or so, we'll probably form something real. Right now, it's just shoved under like an LLC that I've already got. I think mostly, and so yeah, it'll be a real thing at some point, but not yet.
And what I know about both of you is that you have no shortage of ideas. So why did this bubble up to something where you both said, again, with your limited time, you both said, okay, this is something we're going to actually go after?
I don't mind jumping in here. I love communication and I think a lot about good, clear communication. And I love building communities of people. And to me, this is a really great way to communicate well, to communicate regularly, and to build more communities of people that have really a deeper impact on them. Because again, to Sanjay's point, like this platform kind of allows you to give deeper, more insightful, more vulnerable updates than you otherwise would on social. And so I really think it's going to allow people to have deeper relationships.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that's one of the things. I'm a big social person, a big Twitter fan for a long time, but there's a lot of things that people don't say, right? Because they're worried about the repercussions of that on social media, right? So there's things you don't say on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram or on, whatever. And then there's other sites where you say too many things that are not nice, right? Like on Yelp and places like that. So, I think giving people a tool where they can be authentic and be honest and true And we've seen that a couple of times already where people have said things that they probably wouldn't have said in a public forum. Gives the opportunity to drive closer connections and develop actually real meaningful relationships. And I think this is even highlighted even more. And probably to your question, part of the reason might be of what we are experiencing now in 2020 with the pandemic and the fact that you're not seeing people, right? You don't have that opportunity to talk to them face to face and actually understand and read the body language and tell how are they feeling. And, they're saying this, but are they actually meaning this? And still with email, you're maybe not going to get that body language, but maybe it gives that opportunity to be a little bit more honest and real with people.
I love it. I love it. So my last question is, I realize that you two have started something together. Adam and I have started 48 and 48 together. Sanjay, I'm going to say that you and I helped start Shot Put Ventures together.
I'd say that's true. Yeah.
Sure. We can call that.
Yeah.
So then when are we all three going to do something together? What's the idea? Let's do it. What is it?
Man,
that sounds like a good 2021 goal.
You guys are the idea guys.
Well, I need
Back to the Future style hoverboards.
Yes, I'm in.
Okay. All right. That'll be.
I feel like Jeff isn't in. I feel like he's
Jeff was underwhelmed by that idea. That was the Jeff. I'm gonna smile and nod, but that's terrible kind of moment.
I'm assuming Sanjay's going to cowboy up and do the first 6 months of it anyway. So yeah, let's do it.
I don't think you want to see me with a soldering iron. Like that's all kinds of danger. It's going to not end well, but maybe we need to pull out our idea. I've got an idea list. I don't know about you guys, but I have a list of ideas over time that I've kept. Whenever I see something and I'm like, I can't work on that right now, and I put it on the list, but maybe we need to call through our list and find something the three of us do together.
Now we're talking. That sounds like fun.
All right. Sounds like a part two. Sounds like a part two to this.
It'd be a great part.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate it. I'm excited to follow Together Letters, see how this thing evolves. I'm really excited. What day of the week do you guys tape Tech Talk, y'all?
We tape on Fridays. And I should also mention, we have a Together Letters podcast called Together Letters that's really all about the building of this platform, this web app, and what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, the mistakes that we're making. It's a very finished look the behind the scenes of what's going on. So
I love it.
Listening should check that out.
We'll definitely link to that. And then the loyal podcast listeners like me will be listening for any sort of tension on Fridays when you're recording. And then we can go, I bet they had a really bad business meeting the night before. When you guys are going to be snippy at each other, it's going to be excellent.
Well, then you can just listen to the Together Letters podcast and find out what happened.
That's right.
We're totally open and honest about that. So
that's great.
If I'm doing something dumb, Adam will call me out on the podcast.
If we start out a Together Letters podcast with Adam had a nervous breakdown, then you'll know what the tension was. So,
all right, gentlemen, it was great to chat with you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.